Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to the thorough newspaper analysis of 25th January 2023. We have some very important editorials to discuss today, discussing upon some important legal questions such as the Uniform Civil Code, apart from news updates as well as legal updates. Starting with this editorial in the Indian Express, which tells us about the equipment level so far as the police is concerned. This editorial speaks that the annual All India Conference for Director Generals and Inspector Generals for Police was recently held and covered a wide range of subjects that cover national security. While the annual conference has been a source of discussion annually on the macro management issues existing within the police force, the following problems still exist within the police force to which no or little action has been taken. The Model Police Act, which was drafted by Soli Sorabji, is yet to be passed by the Parliament. The Act was drafted in 2006 and since then have been revised multiple times by various committees. A dire strait of police infrastructure is something that also needs to be addressed. Presently, there are around 5 lakh police vacancies. Human resources have to be freshly accorded. We have an abysmal 193 policemen for every lakh citizens. Transport systems are also inadequate, forensic services are dangerously insufficient, and communications too have become obsolete. The police stations must also be strengthened. Housing facilities for the police personnel also have to be much desired, and this directly is said to have the effect on the morale of the police. The National Police Commission had stated 100% family accommodation for all non gazetted personnel. In reality, the count is merely a 32%. Training of police personnels are also inadequate. In between 2015 to 2019, only 6.4% police personnel were trained. Concept of federal crimes must be accepted, that is, acts against terrorism and organized crimes must be looked into by federal law enforcement agencies. This brings us to our next editorial, which talks about that Uttarakhand is gearing to bring its own uniform civil code. There are certain glaring questions regarding a UCC. A quick question to all of you here: the Uniform Civil Code is covered under which article of the Constitution of India? Do give your answers in the chat box below. Moving further with this editorial, it states that will all dimensions of religious laws be consolidated into one law if Uttarakhand adapts to a uniform civil code? Will it treat separate religions separately as is the present case? What principles shall guide uniformity? Will the Uniform Civil Code set an entirely new set of laws? Will the UCC be secular on all sets and counts? Will UCC address polygamy? Now, according to the NFHS data, 1.3% Hindus and 1.59% Muslims practice polygamy. Often, the term polygamy is confused with the term polygamy. The term polygamy essentially means a man having multiple wives. Further, marriage laws in India are diverse. Muslim allow parallel cousins to marry. South Indian Hindus allow cross cousins to marry, although it is a rarity. North Indians do not allow marriage between 5 generations on the father's side and 3 generations on the mother's side, also known as the Sapinda relationships. It is also unclear how the Uniform Civil Code would unite marriage laws, which are so diverse in India. We know that the debate around the Uniform Civil Code has been ongoing ever since the country's independence. And let's see if Uttarakhand is able to take a step forward in this regard. Further, inheritance laws are also difficult to unify. Hindus have co-partners who gain right by the virtue of birth. No other personal law makes this distinction. Kerala has abolished joint family property in 1976 for Hindus. No other state has done that. Matrilineal Hindus have separate inheritance laws as opposed to patrilineal Hindus. Hindus governed by the Dayabhaga system differ from the Mitakshara system. The share of women from inheritance is generally equal for Hindus, Christians, and Parsis, but the same cannot be said for Shariat law. It is also difficult for the Uniform Civil Code to come to a single standpoint when the justification for inheritance in itself differs. While Hindus emphasize sapindas under Mitakshara, other communities privilege blood ties over marriage. Further, the original demand for a UCC back in 1930s was based on gender equality and not identity politics, as is the case today. We know that a uniform civil code is a very important topic when it comes to essay writing in various descriptive examinations such as judiciary, and of course is a very important family law topic. So a lot of important points in this editorial. Do take a note of the same. Moving to the next editorial, which talks about developing schools without barriers. A UNESCO 2019 report mentioned that children with disabilities, CWD, comprise about 1.7% of the total child population in India as per the 2011 census. They're faced with physical, institutional, socio-economic, and communication barriers from an early age, which leads to more than 70% of the 5-year-olds with disability in India never attending any educational institution as per the report. Many CWD also tend to drop out of school as they grow older. The impediments of children with disabilities are as follows: misinformed attitudes and perception amongst parents, teachers, and staff, and communities influence the development of children's emotional development. Lack of teaching practices that integrate inclusive and digital technologies is a further impediment. Ramps or tactile paths, which are necessary for children with disabilities, have not been constructed or are constructed only with unsuitable material. The Accessible India campaign of 2015, that specifically aims at catering to students who are disabled, is an important step to this end. The government has also been supportive of the principle of leave no one behind, that is LNOB, which is central transformative promise of the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. Such exercises, if implemented in schools across the country, would yield favorable results. Coming to the news updates, a 5 member oversight committee has been set up to investigate sexual harassment charges against Wrestling Federation of India. This panel is being led by Mary Kom. Allegations have been leveled against the Wrestling Federation of India President Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh. Olympic medalist wrestler Yogeshwar Dutt, well-known shuttler Trupti Murgunde, former Target Olympic Podium Scheme CEO Commander Rajesh Rajgopalan, and former Executive Director of Sports Authority of India Radhika Sriman are other members of this committee. India lost access to 26 of 65 patrol points in eastern Ladakh. This comes in the light of a worrying new disclosure amid the country's standoff with China at various flashpoints along a tottery of 3,500 kilometers frontier. India bags Oscar nomination for original song and 2 documentaries. Natu Natu, the hit dance track from S.S. Rajamouli's blockbuster RRR, has been nominated for original song at Oscars in 2023. Indian documentaries All That Breathes and Elephant Whisperers walked away with nods in documentary feature and documentary short categories. Architect BV Doshi passes away. Celebrated Indian architect Dr. Balakrishna Vithaldas Doshi, who was an urban planner and educator for the past 70 years, has recently passed away. Everything Every Year bags 11 Oscar nominations. The A24 film has proved an unlikely Oscar heavyweight against the expectation of even its makers. Tata Trust appoints new CEO and COO. Siddharth Sharma has been appointed as the Chief Executive Officer of the Trust and Arpana Uppaluri as the Chief Operating Officer. Their offices shall come into effect from 1st April 2023. Coming on to the legal updates, in the cases of Gene Campaign and Another versus Union of India and others, and Aruna Rodrigues and others versus Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change and others, the Supreme Court held will insert additional safeguards if existing conditions are found insufficient. Additional conditions will be added to the regulating framework governing the environmental release of genetically modified crops. This would be done if the existing conditions fail to broadly account for all shortcomings or dangers associated with the exercise. This was held by Justices Dinesh Maheshwari as well as BV Nagaratna. In another legal update, in the case of Baharul Islam and others versus Indian Medical Association and others, Justice B.R. Gavai and Justice B.V. Nagaratna held that prescribing lesser qualifications for medical practitioners serving rural areas is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court went on to say that any variation in the standards of the qualification required of medical practitioners who render services in rural areas vis-a-vis those rendering services in urban and metropolitan areas is violative of the constitutional values of substantive equality and non-discrimination. The court also held that the state cannot make any policies that causes an unfair advantage to its citizens. So, friends, this was the thorough newspaper analysis for today. Do answer the question that has been asked upon the Uniform Civil Code. Stay tuned for the next thorough newspaper analysis. A very happy Republic Day to all of you. Thank you.